Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. And my name is Hiroi from NTT, and this is going to be the sixth for IR Day, and thank you very much for coming. Today, in the first part, we have presentations on three themes. First of all, the very first presentation is, as of July the 1st, NTT Limited was established, and we have CEO Jason Goodall. And he is really going to talk about their growth strategy. And the second presentation, again, in April this year, NTT Research Inc. was established, which is focusing on R&D activities. And Mr. Yamamoto, Dr. Yamamoto, is going to talk about the quantum neural network. And the third presentation will be on our efforts and approaches to ESG on the part of NTT, where we are actively pursuing various initiatives to promote ESG. And so as to where we are and also what we are doing, and Senior Executive Vice President Mr. Shimada, and also the Women Director SVP, Ms. Oka, and the member of ASB, Ms. Ide, three of the people will be engaged in the discussion on this theme. And after the break, and as to our schedule, starting from 4:50, we are going to have the general Q&A session and facilitated by Mr. Sawada. And so this will conclude the very first part of the programs today. And in the second part, as usual, starting from 5:30, we are going to have the exchange of views networking session. And all the presidents and CEOs of our group companies will be attending. I hope that you will take this opportunity to be engaged in Q&A and the discussion with them. And just the other day, the 5G pre-services announcement was made at by the NTT Docomo and the different venue where we do have the 5G actual sort of the devices. And so the 5G devices, you will be able to have the hands-on experience, and also the demonstration will be provided. And also, the future head-mount display will be used for playing the sort of futuristic games, and you will be able to really enjoy such games. And so I hope that you will really come and just take a look at such exhibitions as well. Well then, without further ado, we would like to move into the presentation session. And first of all, and as for the growth strategy of NTT Limited and the global business promotion, EVP Mr. Okuno and NTT Limited CEO Jason are going to talk about their growth strategy. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Okuno with NTT. Thank you for joining us today. We appreciate your attendance. So allow me to begin very briefly about the focus we have at the company, and then I'd like to invite Jason to provide the main body of the presentation. As you're familiar, in fiscal 2018, NTT's global business generated revenue of $18.9 billion and operating profit margin was 3.2% in fiscal 2018. In fiscal year 2023, we want to expand this to $25 billion revenue and operating profit margin of 7.0%. That is the target which we are addressing at this moment. Now, today, in terms of the revenue, 60% is accounted by NTT Limited, is a recently established company. But with us, Jason Goodall, who is the CEO of NTT Limited, which accounts for 60% of the revenue. So we'll talk about NTT Limited's strategy and also how we intend to improve operating profit margin from 2.8% to 7% at NTT Limited. We'll have a presentation on this topic. That is the objective of our presentation today. Now, here we show you the current situation. We show you the current structure of our global business. Toward the left-hand side, you'll find that NTT Data and NTT Limited, these are the two components, the bodies and the two engines of our global business. And they're trying to reinforce their respective competitive strength so that we can realize operating profit margin of 7%. That is the basic strategy. And we'll be focusing on NTT Limited part today in the presentation. Naturally, we are one entity, so scalability and credibility of one entity will be fully leveraged. That is the premise. And also, depending on the requirements of the client, we believe that we can provide one entity value proposition, a total delivery as well. That, I believe, can be done in a robust manner under NTT Inc. Now, you see the red part. Naturally, there's dynamic change in the marketplace. So therefore, new technologies and new business models will have to be incorporated. We have to be mindful of those new business models and new technologies. At the same time, we have to incorporate them into NTT Group. So that being the case, we have a $500 million fund, and already we have a 100-member team for disruptive innovation approach under NTT Inc. And so going forward in the immediate long term, we want to make sure that we can leverage the R&D of NTT into a group as a whole. And that is why we've set up a research center. And one of the topics at the NTT Research Center will be addressed by one of the following speakers. So that is the focus of our presentation today. Without further ado, I'd like to invite Jason to take the floor for his presentation.
Thank you, Akuna-san. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the IR Day. On behalf of NTT Limited, I'd like to thank you for your time this afternoon. So I'm going to spend the next 15 minutes, as Akuna-san said, giving you a high-level overview and introduce you to NTT Limited that we formed on the 1st of July. I'm then going to give you some context around the market opportunity as we see it, and very, very importantly, how we believe we can grow NTT Limited and improve the profitability over the next 5 years. I'm going to take about 15 minutes and then we'll do Q&A after that. So a little bit about myself. My background from an academic perspective is in finance and accounting. I qualified as a chartered accountant and did my articles at Deloitte, finishing in 1993. I then spent 5 years at IBM in various functions, including finance as well as sales, focusing on the FSI industry more than anything else. 21 years ago, I joined the Dimension Data Group, initially as the Chief Financial Officer for Omnilink, which was a startup company in the managed services environment around networks and outsourcing, before moving as the Chief Operating Officer to Internet Solutions, which was at the time Africa's largest ISP and data center co-location organization. And then from 2003 to 2016, I've had various roles within the Dimension Data Group, and then most recently in July of this year, appointed as CEO of NTT Limited. So 26 years in this industry, which is fantastic and obviously very exciting. So what is NTT Limited? NTT Limited, as I'm sure you all know, was launched on the 1st of July. It was bringing together the capabilities of NTT Communications, Dimension Data, and NTT Security. And really our aspiration is to create a full stack IT services and managed services operation that can really focus on our global clients around the world. We're headquartered in London in the UK. We trade under NTT Limited, but the brand that we go to market with is the one single entity brand. We're starting off with revenues of about $11 billion around the world. We have about 40,000 employees, and we operate across 70 countries and regions around the world. From a governance perspective, we have the NTT Limited board. That board is chaired by Akuna-san. We have 3 executive members on the board, myself, Moribayashi-san, and Dave Sheriffs. And we also have 2 non-executive members, Rory Scott, who's an independent and looks after the audit committee, as well as Vab Goul, who's the general partner for our venture capital fund that we spoke about a bit earlier. So let's start off and look at the market and the industry that we operate in. I guess as NTT Limited, we're very fortunate in that we work in a very dynamic and evolving world. And we believe that this has created opportunities and was really the driving force behind bringing all of the capabilities of NTT Limited together. So what are some of the key differentiators that we see in the market today? And this is based on a report, as you can see, from Gartner, which is interviews around various CIOs around the world. So firstly, it's a growing market. So the predictions are that the market will continue to grow at about 3% per annum. But very, very importantly, it's going to grow in different parts of the market in different geographies at different rates. And we'll touch on that a little bit later. Digitalization is a massive priority. And most CEOs and CIOs have digitalization as one of their key priorities on their to-do list. And within the digitalization strategy, there's one or two key trends that are happening. And artificial intelligence has now become a mainstream technology. And a number of CIOs around the world see it as an opportunity to fundamentally transform their businesses. But when we talk about transforming their businesses, it's not only from a technology perspective, as you know, but technology is now impacting on business models around the world. And through the transformation of technology, businesses themselves are starting to change at a rate of knots. In addition, what companies are doing, and we'll talk about this because it's an opportunity for NTT Limited, is that they're looking at opportunities of taking the digitalization of their own industries and how do they package that and take it to market from a revenue-generating opportunity. But with all of that change and all of that opportunity, there are two challenges that most companies are facing around the world. The first one is around talent. And as companies around the world are all looking for the same talent, the same digitalization talent, people that are able to understand and analyze data and code and software experts, CEOs have recognized that one of their biggest challenges is how do they identify and attract that talent into their organizations, which obviously creates an opportunity for a company like NTT Limited with our capabilities around delivering managed services to those clients. And secondly, and very importantly, 37% of CEOs understand that they need a deep culture shift in their organizations to make sure that from a culture and people perspective, they're able to transform and digitize their companies as they go forward. So that's the environment and the market conditions that we see. So as an organization, what does that mean to us and how do we take advantage of those market trends? So firstly, if you look at some of the capabilities that we have as an organization, and this is by no means an exhaustive list, but just some of the capabilities that we believe make us unique in the market. Starting at the bottom from an infrastructure perspective, we have a network coverage over 190 countries and regions around the world. One of the reports recognized us as having the fourth largest IP backbone. From a performance perspective, we're probably slightly better than that. We're also the third largest data center provider globally, and out of the US, in Asia and Europe, once again, probably slightly better than that. In addition to those telco assets, we're fortunate to be the leading system integrator around the world. We are either number one or number two with most of our ecosystem partners that we represent in the 70 countries around the world. We've also been recognized already as a leading managed service provider with Secure24, the acquisition that we did in the US, being recognized as a pace setter from the TSIA organization, which is the leading organization around managed services. And in addition, we've been recognized as the number 3 world's top 200 managed security services provider. So we're going to market and very, very fortunate that we have already a number of recognized capabilities that as we start to integrate those capabilities and provide a full stack of IT services, we really are in a very good position to be able to help the world become more smarter and more connected as we go forward. And we have examples of helping smart connectivity around mobility, agriculture, cities, and all the way to healthcare. So that's the capability that we're bringing to market in response to the opportunity that we see as the market continues to transform. How do we take that to market? So importantly to know is that we have a single integrated global operating model. We go to market through 5 regions around the world, from the Americas all the way to Middle East and Africa. We represent, those regions represent 15,000 clients around the world, and we currently do business with 85% of the Fortune 500 companies. We also have a dedicated focus around our global accounts. One of the big opportunities that we have is representing across 70 countries with a full stack of capability. Few other companies are able to do that from a global perspective, and more what we're seeing in the market are global accounts wanting to deal with one partner across their full geographic footprint. We're also able to take advantage of a number of Japanese multinational clients that are obviously extending outside of Japan and doing business in the rest of the globe. We also have a dedicated team of strategic solutions, because the real value that we can take to market is integrating the various capabilities to create an outcome for our clients. So we have a dedicated team that are represented in each of the regions around the world that allows us to really combine the capabilities and create that outcome that our clients are looking for. Those regions represent and take to market through 2 centers of excellence, our ICT infrastructure center of excellence that really represents our network, data center, and cloud capabilities to market, as well as our transformational platform services, which is our managed services capability that we deliver out of 2 global delivery centers, one in Bangalore and one in Prague, to the globe. So we now have one integrated, automated platform that allows us to deliver the same consistent standard of managed services around the world. Everything that we do is secure, so it's secure enabled. As we know, in the world today, security is paramount, and we have a security company that's able to ensure that whatever solution we take to market, we embed security in that solution. And then from a functional perspective, we are launching a single integrated shared services model that provides the back-end functionality across marketing, IT, and all the way to the CTO function. So that's a global standard operating model that we implemented to take our value to market. What does that allow us to do? So as Akuna-san mentioned, our starting point today is about a $300 million profit, 2.8% on $11 billion of revenue. And our financial aspiration is to grow that to a 7% operating profit on a $15 billion revenue foundation. So the question obviously in everyone's minds is, what are the initiatives and what is the plan to go from a 2.8% operating profit to a 7% operating profit over the next 5 years? So fundamentally, what we're going to do is we're going to shift our portfolio from lower, more commoditized type services and technology resale to higher value and services that are represented and compete in a faster growing part of the market. So the attractive markets, and we have offerings today in these spaces around data center, managed services, network, and security. And the ambition at the moment is that we do about 30% of our revenue in those higher growth services, and is to transform and grow that to about 50% of our revenue by 2023. The advantage of doing that is that it's not only the faster part of the market, but at the same time it represents a higher margin business compared to some of the other commoditized services that we have in our portfolio, with an average operating profit of about 10% across those service types. So we're going to capitalize on the faster growth in those markets. As I mentioned earlier, the overall market growth in the IT space is about 3%. But if you break that down, managed services, for example, is about 7%. And if you then look at the granular detail behind the 7% growth, that's represented by 5% growth on what we call on-premise managed services, which is not our strategy, and about 19% growth in what we call platform-delivered managed services, which is our strategy. So our ambition with our managed services capabilities that we've invested in and through the M&A that we've already done is to obviously target that 19% growth in managed services around the world. And as I mentioned, we're already the 3rd biggest global data center player, and the data center opportunity around the world is about 9%. So we believe that our revenue growth aspirations, looking at the market segments that we're competing in, are absolutely achievable. As I mentioned, not only are those the fastest growing parts of the industry from an ICT perspective, but they're also the highest margin parts of the industry. So from a managed services perspective, and these are industry average operating profits, managed services companies are currently operating at about 12% return on sale, and security companies are around 10% return on sale. So the first part of the initiative and the first part of our transformation plan to grow from a 3% or 2.8% operating profit to a 7% operating profit is really to make sure that we target our go-to-market, our sales, and our services in those fast-growing, higher-margin parts of the industry. The second very important piece, obviously, is the advantage of bringing together 40,000 people and the 3 kind of group companies around the world, is that we also get an opportunity of leverage. So we believe that over the next 5 years, we should be able to achieve about a $200 million saving over that period of time through various initiatives that we've already started. The first is the internal digitalization. So as I mentioned, one of the trends that you're starting to see in the industry is more and more companies are digitizing their own back office environments, and then they're actually packaging those and taking them to market. From an NTT Limited perspective, our ambition is to make sure we continue on the digitalization strategy, which fundamentally means that we standardize our processes, we set up shared services models and shared delivery models, and then we automate and use robotics in order to get the efficiencies out of those processes. We're then going to use those as an internal case study as we take those capabilities to market. There's also an opportunity as you bring all of these organizations together that you have overlap from some of the resources that you have, and there will be some initiatives as we go forward around making sure that we streamline and rationalize the headcount that we have across the organization as a result of having duplicate roles by bringing all these companies together. There's a huge opportunity around rationalizing our delivery model. So we started this journey a number of years ago, but as we bring the various capabilities together, we can continue to get leverage out of our delivery and to continue to automate our delivery as we go forward. We've set up a separate procurement organization. Obviously, as an $11 billion company, you're in a much better position to be able to leverage and negotiate around procurement than the organization. So we believe there'll be savings we can achieve around procurement. And then at the same time, as you can imagine, a lot of the companies that we had operated in the same cities. So we are going through a process already around rationalizing the offices that we have around the world. So we believe through those initiatives, we should be able to achieve about a $200 million operating profit improvement. Right, so that's in a very brief form to give you some sort of idea as to our plans around transforming NTT Limited from our current profitability to our aspiration of 7%. We believe that the market opportunity is there. We're fortunate, I guess, as an organization that we already have huge capability in a number of those fast growth areas, and we already have credibility around the brand, and we already have a very large customer base to leverage off in order to be successful in growing in those service areas. At the same time, there's a huge opportunity to rationalize some of our cost base as we bring these companies together. Some of the low-hanging fruit that we see is that when you have 15,000 clients that currently probably only consume 1 or 2 services across the portfolio of capability that we have a massive opportunity to be able to sell additional services into an existing client base where we have existing relationships. So we're very confident and excited around the journey. And with that, I think we can open up for any Q&A. Shimada-san.